Good evening. It is Wednesday, September 6, 2017. It is 7 p.m. We're going to call to order the first meeting for September for the Ottawa City Commission. Could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Commissioner Graves.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
I'd like to welcome individuals that are in the audience today. We have a kind of a wide variety of topics that we're talking about this evening, so I'm always happy to have individuals in the audience, and want to welcome anybody who may be listening on KOFO or who is watching this replay some other time across their TV screen or is on Facebook Live with us. So we're certainly glad. We are all here to represent you, and we do that to the best of our ability, but we're glad when you're part of the process. We will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation with our Director of Finance, Scott Bird. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We read in the Old Testament book of Lamentations that God's mercies are new every morning. Would you pray with me? Lord God in heaven, we praise your holy name. We thank you that your mercies are new. We thank you for your mercies, and we thank you for a community like this where we can enjoy life together. But Lord God, we pray for your mercies on those in Texas who are recovering. And we pray for those in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Florida, and we ask for your mercies in the event of this storm that is encroaching on them right now, Lord God. We would just ask that you would still those waters and give these people mercy. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. That brings us to our consent agenda, which is item 6 on our agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to our regular agenda. Public comment. We have always have an opportunity in our agenda to give any individual who would like to address the City Commission an opportunity to do so. Have we had individuals who have registered for today?
No one registered for today.
All right, thank you. This brings us to declaration. At this time, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication that they might have had that would influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Commissioners?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I will abstain from any voting that we have that has to do with Prairie Fire Development Group, as I am in a contract with them now on a project, and I've done quite a few projects with them. But I would be absolutely happy to answer any questions you guys have with my relationship with them.
Okay. Thank you for your declaration. Anybody else? All right. That would move us on to new business.
Proclamation recognizing Access Awareness Day.
This proclamation celebrates the 27th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was passed to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities. Kyle Trendle, the chairman of the Accessibility Advisory Board, will accept this proclamation, which will be read by Commissioner Crowley. Commissioner Crowley?
Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas the City of Ottawa of the State of Kansas affirms the principles of equality, accessibility, and inclusion are essential for ensuring that all community members have access to opportunities and the ability to fully participate in community life as set forth for the State of Kansas and embodied in the ADA, the laws of the State of Kansas, and the Ordinance of Ottawa, Kansas. And whereas numerous organizations in the City of Ottawa and the State of Kansas work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. And whereas the City of Ottawa formed an Accessibility Advisory Board in 2013 with current members Casey Brady, Nabila Formoso, Tina Galen, Marcia Hermrich, Chris Patton, Lisa Rossman, Kyle Trindle, Ruth Ann Wasco, and Tammy Womack to enhance accessibility efforts in Ottawa. And whereas accessibility should be part of all aspects of community life, physical, social, and economic, including employment, transportation, recreation, housing. And whereas we all have a role to play in ensuring that our communities are accessible and inclusive as possible. And whereas approximately 12.5% of the population has a disability, which often impacts their ability to effectively access services and shopping. And whereas July 26, 2017 celebrates the 27th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act with Access Awareness Day. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby recognize the rights of all individuals with disabilities and the importance of ensuring that they have access to opportunities that are important to them and that give their life's meaning to all, observing August 18, 2017 as Access Awareness Day. And the City of Ottawa signed this 6th day of September 2017.
Great. Mr. Trendle, would you like to come forward? I'd like to take a picture with you. I think that you also have Ms. Hermrich with the advisory board. She's going to come up too. All right. Here's the odd part. Now we have to stand here and look. Like this is like a really comfortable spot for us to stand and go, okay. Awesome. I'd love to hear from both of you.
I would like to add something that Commissioner Taylor said.
Would you like to, Marcia, if you'd like to talk on the, then we can make sure and get it, that would be great. Through closed captioning, we want to make sure we get your comments on there.
I am Marcia Hermrich from the Accessibility Board. As Commissioner Taylor said, that a bill which later became Americans with Disabilities was sponsored in the United States Senate by former Senator Robert Joseph Dole of Kansas and co-sponsored by the late Edward M. Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts. It was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990, and amended by President George W. Bush in 2008. The changes took effect on January 1st, 2009.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Trendle?
Thank you for having us. I appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for helping us with our vision on this proclamation for the advisory committee. Just a few things to touch on. Our board's been in place for about 6 years, and there's been a transition plan for about 7. And there's been about 160 facilities that have been identified, or some modifications that we need to make to some facilities that right now we've addressed. Roughly about 94, 95 of those, so around 60% of those have been completed, and we're looking at about 10% additional being completed at the end of this year. There have been about 43 intersections that we've looked at improving as well with the curb ramps. Many of those we've looked at all 4 corners and addressed some of those issues. Our board, we try to reach out and touch on different aspects, not necessarily with just mobility, but also with hearing as well as visual. So we address quite a few different items when it comes to our board. We've also helped with assisting with the planning of the accessibility event checklist, which we've kind of helped identify some of the points that we need to make sure those that are coming in from outside of the area when they set up those events, some of the key things that we need to address. This Friday at 8 a.m. At City Hall, we've got a chamber coffee where we'll be handing out People First language. Some of the key items on those bookmarks that we'll be handing out are just some of the ways that you can change your wording on how you address certain things when it comes to those that may be disabled. So if you've got any questions for me, I'm sure you're pretty versed with our committee But we've got a good group of people that I think are trying to enhance the city as well, give you some advice on some of those issues. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trendle. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That moves us on to item 10 on our agenda.
Proclamation recognizing the 2017 Ottawa Arrows AAA American Legion baseball team.
Proclamation, well, this is a proclamation that honors the American Legion AAA state champions. Head coach Brian Long and his team will accept the proclamation. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the 2017 Ottawa Arrows American Legion Post 60 baseball team claimed the third consecutive American Legion AAA state championship and the 7th state championship at the state tournament in Ottawa, Kansas on July 26th through 30th, 2017. Whereas the team finished with a record of 39 wins and 11 losses and spent countless hours at practice, traveling to games, playing games, doing laundry. I think that's the parents' job. But boys, if you were doing it, I'm proud of you. And whereas the success of the team is due to hard work and commitment of not only the players, coaches, managers, and assistants, but to the parents, friends, families, and community who supported and encouraged the team as they advanced through the season to the Mid-South Regional Tournament in New Orleans, Louisiana. And whereas the team members are Merrick Brown, Chance Crowley, Trenton Ferguson, Keegan Finch, Brock Huddleston, Owen Lamar, Grant Maxwell, Cody Mitchell, Johnny Nash, Jared Parente, Donovan Sudi, okay, thank you, Coach Long, appreciate that. Trevor Bain, did I get it wrong? Bain, okay. Alex Trinkle, Spencer Hayes, Brody Mundell, Dalton Rankin, I'm going to make sure I get that one right, Colson Bean, Cale Clark, and the team's head coach, Brian Long, with assistant coaches Spencer Hawkins, Nathan Roth, Scott Sneathen, and Brian Thompson. Coach's assistant is Bailey Evans. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby recognize the 2017 Ottawa Arrows AAA American Legion baseball team for achieving an outstanding season and encourages the citizens of Ottawa to join in this recognition and express congratulations to the team for a job well done. Signed this the 6th day of September 2017 by the Mayor, Sarah Kaler. Coach Long, would you like to come forward? But then we would love to get a picture of the individuals that are here, maybe after that. But we'd love to hear from you. I feel like we've done this before. You have the mic.
We definitely appreciate the opportunity to come and celebrate one more time an outstanding achievement by these young men. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys that are on the team were away at college or had prior commitments, so it was a little tough getting everybody here. Blaine forgot to send the private jet for everybody, I think. So, anyway, this season was a tremendous success, not only record-wise, but one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the development of our young men in our program. One of the things that I'm very proud of that these guys did was to participate in a community service project that I challenged them with, raising money for the Franklin County Cancer Foundation. It was something that we set out to raise $2,000, and we more than doubled that to go forward with the community. And that's one of the things that we've tried with our program to stress to our young men the importance of community involvement, whether it's us here in Ottawa or whether we had a few players come over from Paola this year to participate as well. This was a team organization that from the AAA standpoint is also the single A standpoint that was headed and coached by Scott Sneathen and Brian Thompson, and none of our success would have been possible without our board and the people on that board. We've experienced a tremendous amount of success in the last 3 years, but they've been around for quite a bit longer than that, guiding this program. And again, this could not have been possible without them. We got the opportunity to host our state tournament this year. The success of the team and the outpouring of love and support from the community was evidenced by we played in front of probably one of the largest crowds ever in the state of Kansas for a high school baseball game, and it was packed. It was a tremendous experience. It wasn't the most exciting game as we jumped out and just threw haymakers right off the bat. Makes it a little bit easier to coach, but they stressed me out enough 2 games before that when we were down to our final out, had 2 guys on, and Brock Huddleston came up with a huge 2 RBI double to walk off and win the game. So I was all for cruising through the last 2 games. My heart wasn't going to take much more than that. But these guys played with a tremendous amount of pride for this community. They represented this community as you would expect them to do. And I couldn't be more proud of this group from top to bottom, including my assistants and the board. This is a tremendous organization and one that Ottawa, Kansas can be very proud of. So thank you very much for everything that the community's done for us. And I think somebody else has got to take over because there's a 4th one to be won too. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you.
Coach Long, I believe that we also probably, as a commission, need to thank you for your tenure as the coach of the American Legion ball team. It sounds like maybe your time.
Yeah, it's over.
Okay.
For me.
I didn't want to look at your wife, but I was like, Heather, is
No.
it?
It's in great hands, and it's one of those situations that I can step away and coach the younger Longs in the household, and I can't wait to see the success of the future of this program. Continue on next season and what's left as well. So, thank you very much for everything and the opportunity as well.
Well, you have led quite a team, so we appreciate it. Not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Thank
So
you.
we're happy for that. We'd love to get a picture with the boys that are here and the coaches that are here, so that we can maybe rub it in the face for those that are in college. We're really glad that they're there, but I mean, we need to send it to them, right? So come up, gentlemen. They can come around back. We'll scoot in. I'll do it. Yeah. I'll do it. Do they look even, Paul?
Yeah, that looks pretty good. If they want to take a step to their right, a half step that way. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3. Do one more. 1, 2, 3.
Great. Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations. Yes. Absolutely. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Is there such thing as a 4-peat?
Congratulations.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Good job.
Excellent. That moves us on to item 11 on our agenda.
Request for approval of real estate contract with Prairie Fire Development Group, LLC.
This contract allows Prairie Fire Development Group to purchase land the city owns at North Cherry Enterprise. I believe Mrs. Lee will be addressing this matter today.
Good evening, Commissioners. This item is really a repeat of an item earlier this year when you had entered into an agreement to purchase ground with Prairie Fire at the same location in advance of their application for tax credits. And other than some date changes and the acreage change, because their moderate income housing application is for a smaller parcel, the contract is exactly the same. So we just ask that you act on that in order for their plans to continue on, and they do intend to come back with the balance of the ground in a separate application in order to apply for tax credits again early next year.
Commissioners, does anybody have questions for Mrs. Lee regarding this request? If not, is there a motion to approve the request for real estate contract with Prairie Fire Development Group?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion. We approve item number 11 on the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion among commissioners? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
And I vote yes, motion carries. That moves us on to item 11 on the agenda. Sorry,
Mayor?
12. 12. Just making sure everyone was paying attention. It's actually item 12.
Thought maybe I lost my place. Overview of housing project requests.
This is a brief overview that will be provided by Mrs. Lee on the request and process for the approval.
I'm sure all of you recall that actually some of the overview I gave at a study session, as well as some information that we've been looking at this now for some while. Housing has become an important topic again in the community, and we've been conducting a housing assessment. When Commissioner Skidmore was the mayor, we had done something similar. And so this has been an ongoing topic for you as a commission for 2 years. The completed assessment is, well, the assessment is not yet quite complete. We're waiting on some remaining confirmation and back check with some data that was provided by the Franklin County Appraiser's Office, and we were thankful to have gotten that, but we need to get the rest of it wrapped up so that they can provide that full assessment to you. But I did provide to you earlier some of those details, as well as some information that was provided to me by one of our real estate professionals. Specifically for the moderate income housing, the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation has an open application that is due September 15th, and the funding is for up to $400,000 of funds for moderate income housing projects. We were aware back when Prairie Fire first approached us back in early 2017 that they intended to apply, and then midsummer, I think, or early summer, we had another interested party approach us about an application for the moderate income housing. And so you're going to hear tonight from both of those proposers about their specific application. The state project works in a way that they would award this. We are the actual applicant. The city is the actual applicant, but it's done in partnership with the developers and investors. I'm not going to go into each one of their things. We do have resolutions that are available for action if you would like to do that later tonight. If you need additional material from anyone and would rather defer that to Monday, that's fine, but obviously the applications would have to be at least prioritized in order for them to move forward for that September 15th deadline. I'm happy to answer questions on just kind of that, but we've got representatives from both projects here. We provided to you in your packet some of their materials, and then laying on your counter up there tonight is background information on the folks that are party to each development, and some of their experience is expressed in either their packet that we sent to you earlier or on your counter there, so that you would have enough information then to hopefully make a recommendation, and they are both prepared for questions that you may have as well.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Lee. Did anybody have questions, just general overview questions for Mrs. Lee before we had the presentations from the individuals? Seeing none, we will move forward to item 13.
Presentation by Rudy Maines for Prairie Fire Residences.
Mr. Maines, would you like to come forward and give us your presentation?
Hello.
Hello.
Rudy Maines. I'm with Prairie Fire Development and Construction. I'm a resident, longtime resident of Franklin County. I also live here in Ottawa. Actually, I'm a neighbor to your sister.
Sorry?
It's all good. It's all good. But I also want to congratulate these guys over here. And I can tell you, for these young guys, I think they all come and sold their cards to me with Mr. Grant Maxwell. But I can say, Coach, what you have here is probably 20 years of a lot of hard work throughout this community to get these kids to where they're at today. And I congratulate them as well. It's been a lot of hard work here in Ottawa. And I can assure you of that because I've been through the ranks with them as well. So we're affordable housing developers. We're the developer. We build everything ourselves. We hire local to the best ability that we can. And we also operate our own properties. So at the end of the day, who you see standing here today is going to be the owner of that property. We're applying for the moderate income housing, which I'm going to have Nick speak a little bit about the affordable housing side that we will refer to as phase 1. We just did the exact same thing in Mountain Ridge, Kansas, and it works extremely well when you couple the two programs together. Because of what the moderate really does for you, it picks up on the affordable housing just where people aren't eligible anymore. They make just a little bit too much money to be into that program. So it picks up from right there, and then it goes up. So it's still under the market rate, so it's that in-between, which really is what fits everything of what we do throughout our community for workforce housing. We've got a tremendous amount of growth that's happening down here, but our housing stock is not there. It's really, really bad. I can attest to that as well. My 22-year-old son moved out, and I went. He needed to live there, so I let him do that. But I know what he was paying for that thing, and he needed to experience that. But it's not the type of housing that we need to continue to keep people in our community and to bring more employment here. So really, that's what we're here to do. We want to bring some affordable housing that people can say that they're proud to go home and they have a good, safe, affordable house to live in. At the end of the day, what it really does, most people are spending over 50% of their income to pay for just rent. The majority of people are renters. So what we do is it just puts more money back in their pocket so that they can spend it back in our economy again and creates more taxes and things that go along with it. So from there, I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who is with my group, and Nick is a former Novogradic person, real estate appraiser, so any numbers in that I can talk about some, but without question, it's more Nick's background, and I brought him here with me tonight to discuss it.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. Thanks, everybody, for having us on the agenda tonight. I think Rudy's going to let me do the talking from here since you guys have been hearing him for the last 25 years. So we're proposing the moderate income. We're proposing a total 3-phase, 56-unit development here, close to the Lincoln Elementary School. The first phase, what we're here to discuss tonight, is 6 units using the moderate income housing program. Like we heard earlier from Ms. Lee, the grant is about $400,000. Total development costs of the entire, for all 3 phases, is about $9 million. For the first phase, it's about $870,000. Like Rudy said, we're a vertically integrated company. We develop, build, and manage. That's how we've handled all of our properties so far. We just wrapped up construction on a 108-unit development in downtown Kansas City, actually just north of the Loop there in the Columbus Park neighborhood. We just wrapped up 40 units out in Mound Ridge, Kansas, 30 units of tax credit, and then 42 units, 30 of tax credit, and then 12 of the moderate income. That development is 100% leased, so that's a good representation of what we expect to happen in this community as well. And we currently have 63 units of tax credit housing under construction in Newton, Kansas. So we welcome any calls and reference checks with the city of Newton, just to check us out, our background working with the city down there. So really, I mean that's kind of the overview. of what we're proposing today, and like Rudy said, over 50% of renters in the country today make less than $35,000 a year. So these types of programs provide good quality housing at a more affordable rate for those who most need it. Like we see everywhere, there are cranes up everywhere building apartments, but they're largely servicing, a different demographic, a luxury market rate. This will actually, like Rudy said, put more money back into the pockets of those who most need it and give some relief when it comes to paying just for housing costs. So, there's incredible demand for this type of product. We love bringing this type of product and serving this market niche. And really, any questions that you have, we're happy to answer.
I see you have 3 phases. What are your triggers to move into the second and third phase?
Well, we intend to submit a tax credit application for the second phase in January with KHRC. It's a competitive process. There aren't guarantees as to who will be allocated those funds, but we're confident with the demand that's here. And already progressing forward with the MIH, we think that would definitely help. And the third phase is a market rate phase that would come in after, where most of the development and site work and things like that those costs have already been taken care of by and large with the first 2 phases. So that'll make the market rate portion more feasible.
I'll add to this as well. Everybody knows Richard Jackson with ECAN. Great steward of our community as well. Richard's been a little ill and has been out of pocket here for a little while. We actually did finally hear back from him today, and he is going to be a part of our group to develop all this as well. So what that means is we have a local nonprofit that's going to participate and have ownership in this as well, to provide the services that they need and what their mission is as well. So news. You didn't realize that because we just got the voicemail here about 4 o'clock from Richard. So I was glad to hear his voice. Hadn't heard from him in a long time, but it is something that we've been working with his staff on. They're a smaller group, and with this being right here in Ottawa, I think it's a great fit for them, and to allow them to help them grow and bring some of the developer fee and some of the things that come along with the benefits of this to help them with their overall mission as well.
Thank you.
Could you tell? Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question here. What, assuming everything clicked along just as it should in something like this, what kind of time frame are we looking at, starting to finish?
Well, with the MIH portion, if we get the funding, we move to close as quickly as possible on the contract. So usually that due diligence period is about 90 to 120 days, and then we'd start construction immediately after that, provided the ground isn't frozen.
Spring.
Given the time of year.
Springtime, I guess.
Right. So springtime is probably when we proceed, and then 6 units. That's not going to take any time to throw up at all.
And what is it about Harvey County that seems to be attracting so much construction? Is it growing there, I guess? Is that the...
Well, and I've told Wendy this, and I tell everybody that I talk to, what's happening out there is they have the lowest utility rates in the country, okay? And they are bringing in manufacturers right and left up and down that 135 corridor, okay? So we want to attract it. And Wendy's addressed it. We've talked about it. Actually, her and I have been working on this for 4 years, for a little bit longer. So we've known we have the need here. We've been working on it. But what's driving the growth out there and everything that's going on is utilities. People can come in and literally, these big corporations can make their mortgage payments on utility savings alone, and that's what's bringing the unemployment in. But I think we're starting to see some of that here too. We've got some really good things in the works here that is coming, and hopefully we can get more and we can provide more housing for them.
Thank you.
Well, and I think the demand will also be substantiated with your housing needs assessment when it gets done. I'm sure it will be. And the fact that there are 2 people here today vying for the moderate income housing grant shows also the depth of demand that's here.
Could you address the units that you are proposing? Are those maintenance-free units?
They are, yes.
Okay. And they aren't necessarily targeted for, I noticed that you had done some senior living and some other things like that, but that is not necessarily your target on these particular.
That's correct. This will be multifamily, so general population. Seniors can still live there, of course, but yeah, it targets everyone. Yeah.
Sure. And then, can you, and I know this, you said this was in Phase 2, can you address your history with the KHRC funding, and what's been your history with that?
Sure. Well, we've been, Rudy probably wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can tell you, we have a great relationship with KHRC. We know the LIHTC side of this really, really well, and our applications score number 1 or number 2 every year for the last 5 years straight. At the end of the day, they can only award so many because of the population of Kansas. There's only so much that can go around. And we told Wendy when we first came into this, it usually takes 2 rounds of the application to get approved. But ours will score in top 1 or 2 of all applications on the LIHTC side that comes through, without question.
Good.
I do have one additional question. This may be more for Wendy. This is not in a neighborhood revitalization district, is that correct?
No, after I sat down, I realized I meant to make one more point. And neither project is in a neighborhood revitalization district because they're further north in kind of greenfield area, if you will. Neighborhood revitalization has usually been in the areas where we've already had housing that needed to be demolished as well. However, both of the developers have expressed interest in the rural housing incentive districts. And you recall also in January, we made that presentation with the school district, the city, and the county, and had received general support from all 3 to pursue that as well. The housing assessment is also key for that. And so I mentioned to one of them, I'm not sure who, tonight, that as soon as that housing assessment is complete, we will wrap that up, submit it to the state for review for that, because we intend to declare at least 2, maybe 3 areas where we know that there's some potential and the need for investment in infrastructure that goes along with the investment that they would be making on a private basis. So.
Okay. And on a rural housing district, rural housing
incentive district,
how long of a period does that run?
The incentive district?
Yeah.
I think it's 20 years too. Is that you guys? What is it? 15
okay.
Years. I really off the top couldn't remember because we haven't gotten that quite that far.
Sure.
But we have talked with Tyler Ellsworth, our bond counsel, about developing all the materials for us, and they're working on that so that we'll be ready to move it as quickly as possible, because regardless of how the MIH works out, we really think that both developers have some opportunities here, and we believe the community can support and has need for both. So to the end that we at least want to support them from the Rural Housing Incentive District, we're interested in that. And oftentimes that can actually end up being even more impactful than this MIH funding. So we will be back at the table for those 2, regardless of actions tonight.
Thank you.
I wonder if the individuals from Prairie Fire might want to, and this sounds like the really bad job interview question, but can you tell us about a project that went really well for you and a project that didn't, and how you made it whole?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Really, we've only had one project that was a little bumpy, and I can tell you, we've got a gentleman sitting here in the room with us tonight that actually developed it, did the drawings for us, and we submitted under a specific code that what we were supposed to do, and it's in McPherson, Kansas, which still turned out to be a beautiful facility. The city will tell you that. We had them out here just the other day, the codes enforcement and a police officer, thanking us for what a wonderful community that we've put into their community. Because at the end of the day, we're still a part of it. That's the key to us, is we're there. We're going to remain a part of the community. But Kyle can attest. We had a set of drawings approved per their plans, and we got about a quarter of the way into it, Kyle, maybe a little bit further. They said, "Well, you're not building to the right code." Well, we are. It's municipal code. That's where it was at, and we showed it where it was at, and they ended up shutting their website down. But we were still able to go in through the backside and still pull their information and show them that we are building this to your plans and specifications. and to the local codes. And so at the end of the day, we had to have attorneys involved so that they can interpret. I mean, Lane, that's what you guys do, right? You interpret everything. So that's what we did. We all sat down at a table, we hashed it out. But at the end of the day, I promise you, Mayor Brown out there will give us a great recommendation as well. We worked through it with them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioners, any additional questions? We appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Next would be item 14.
Presentation by Ross Vogel for Fairway Vista Project.
Mr. Vogel, would you like to come forward and make your presentation?
Good evening, Mayor,
Hello.
Commission members. My name is Ross Vogel, Heartland Housing Partners, and very pleased to be here. First of all, the things you all are talking about housing, it's region-wide, not just Kansas, but regional, and we work a little bit in Nebraska, and it's the same issues. The numbers don't work anymore, is the reality, and they don't work on the single-family side, and they don't work on the rental side, and so therefore, what used to occur, somewhat easily 30 years ago isn't occurring at all, and so that's why you have this lack of rental housing, not just in Ottawa. It's interestingly, we end up next door to a Prairie Fire on several different projects, and maybe we hope to this time. No offense on this one. And we do what we do, and they do what they do what they do, and they do it very well. We focus exclusively on market rate. A quick background story: I was in Garden City working on a commercial deal, and the mayor kept asking, "Do you do housing?" And about the third time he asked, I said, "I got to figure this out." And so we've been in it for 6 years, and have done some really nice projects. Our project is Fairway Vista. That's a working name because of the area it's in, but just want to get you familiar, just north of the golf course there. We're proposing two sides of the project. There's a duplex project of 7 units and an apartment building project of 24 units. Is everyone familiar with that site, or generally familiar with that site? We do have this property under contract right here, and one of the partners currently owns the property here. I just wanted to focus in a little bit on the apartment project. It'd be oriented towards Diamond Head Road, be 24 units here, 3 stories. We do have an option on this piece of property as well, so if there would be need to expand, we would be able to do so. Get to the particulars about the project. It's 38 units, a total of just under $5 million. We're requesting a $400,000 moderate income housing grant. We would also need to do a rural housing incentive district. The request to the state's about 10,000 or just over 10,000 a unit. We've been really successful. My company has been really successful at the moderate income housing. This will be the 6th year of the program, so the 5 previous years we've applied 4 times, gotten it every time. One of the reasons for that is because we put so many units in. It's a government program. We bring up the average quite a bit when we do our projects. Rural Housing Incentive District, there's about 20 of those across the state. We've done over half of those Rural Housing Incentive Districts, so we're very familiar with the process and how it works. To get to the specifics, there are 14 duplex units, 10 3-bedroom and 4 2-bedroom units. And then 24 multifamily units, 16 2-bedroom and 8 1-bedroom units. Why is this problem occurring, and why isn't the local market taking care of this? Why does someone from Kansas City have to look at this? If you look at the rent rate right here, the last time I leased an apartment in a new apartment in the year 2000, I was paying $1,000 a month. So when we talk about the issues, we're dealing in 2017 price cost, and we're dealing in 2000 rents, and that's not exclusive to Ottawa. Every time I get up and give this same talk, whether it be Newton or McPherson or Garden City or Liberal, it's the same issue. I do want to say these rent rates are what we've gotten everywhere. They fall into line, and those are those seem high. Part of the trick to this, I will tell you, is that currently in Fairway Vista, the rent rates are much lower than this. And we know that. We know that coming in. Part of the trick is getting that market to squeeze a little more, to pay a little more. But what we've always found in every project that we've done, that people will pay for new. And quite frankly, from an economic standpoint, the community needs new, or otherwise that gap's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Just a quick rendering, the multifamily building. Now, we were going to do 3 stories, not 2. All of them have balconies. They're like something you would see without all the amenities in a larger suburb, or this particular building is. You can see the 2 floor plans. I put this floor plan to show one thing. We separate the bedrooms. We do that for a reason. A lot of times in a lot of communities, new teachers had a need. We get 2 people that maybe didn't know each other as well, and we could have a little bit of privacy by separating those bedrooms. From a design perspective, that's a little harder than one would think. The duplex, pretty straightforward design on the duplex. This particular design is the 3-bedroom. Talked a little bit about the team. First part is Rockham Development, which is a partnership between Eileen and Mike Burns. Eileen and Mike Burns are the owners of Auburn Pharmacy. They own those lots out there. They own 28 pharmacies across the region. They've won the Governor's Award for Excellence for their pharmacies. Great people, and have about 50 properties already currently. They also have the CFO of their company is Bert Peterson. He actually has a development background in huge projects from a company in Kansas City. And in fact, I was talking to Bert on the phone today, and I'm starting to, when we put together our sheet, I was like, this is a really good team. We should go do some projects with this team. So really pleased with the team. A Romero building, Jason Romero, once again, he's a real estate development attorney as well as owning a construction company. Deep background in that, in communities similar to this, similar in size to Ottawa. We do like to use local, and to put it in Rudy's words, as much as we can. These, as I describe it when we talk about these projects, the margins are so tight, and every project in today's world, the margins are tight. These are extremely tight, and I call it death by 1,000 paper cuts. We have to watch every single dollar, and every dollar matters. Heartland Housing Partners is my company. We focus on these market rate projects that are really similar to this. We also do single family. Right now, we're assisting several organizations in Kansas City, Kansas, on doing their development for them. They're housing organizations, but we're doing their development for them. For lack of a better term, we focus on underserved markets. Goes back to that original story. Someone's got to figure this out. And then National Brokers, Inc. will be the property manager for the project. Chris Saigan, which I'm sure a lot of you know, Chris manages about 100 properties and just under 50, I think, here in Ottawa as well. Now, I will point out that the 2 sides of this project will be owned by different entities, but you will never know it once I say it here, and the consumer will never know it, because they're all going to be managed and built seamlessly, but they will be owned by 2 separate entities, the apartment project and the duplex project. Project advantages. I think that's a great location. If you look at the community, it has access, and I'll talk about it. Something went wrong with the slideshow here. A great location, has great access to the 4-lane highways. I think another big issue is that it's exclusive market rate. That area is exclusively market rate. It'll continue to be exclusively market rate. One of the things about the project, we haven't always done and don't always do the projects where it has duplexes and the apartments combined. But what it allows to hit a real wide swath of the market, meaning you have a 1-bedroom apartment all the way up to a 3-bedroom duplex. So you have families all the way down to anyone who would choose a 1-bedroom. Also, it's a little bit of a price point from $800 to around $1,200. I'm trying to remember what number 3 was. Oh, time to market. This property's ready to go. We would need some community approvals, RHID being one of those, but also some approvals on zoning for one of the parcels. And then lastly, the team. That's just a really good team put together and with the capability to fund the project. These are not charities, but those margins are really tight. And so that's why it's so important that we have the grants and we're able to get the RHID. Just some past projects so you can give a flavor. This is Village at the Plaza, 48 units. Exactly RHID, MIH project. a great project. Last I knew, it was 100% full. This is Terra Nova McPherson. This is right next door to Rudy's project. Ended up being a great project. They were put together at the same time. I think we were both worried about, or I was certainly worried about market confusion, but it worked out great, and both of them filled up. You quicker than us because of the nature of it.
Is
Both
this
of them filled up.
South McPherson by the cemetery?
Right next to the cemetery under the water
Okay.
tower, yeah. Really, really good project. There's the inside of Terra Nova, just to give you a flavor. And like I said, they are nice. These are nice, when you're going to charge the highest rents in the market, they have to be nice. Last one is a project in Garden City. This was the first year of the MIH grant. This won a state award for a project, Pioneer Road Estates, the duplex project. So both those, all those projects, very nice projects, and stand for any questions you might have.
Commissioners, questions?
I recognize the one project there. My daughter just bought a house across the street from that in McPherson.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you had the apartments and the duplexes are going to be constructed right away.
Yep.
And you have an option on the future multifamily building behind. Is there a trigger?
No, there is no trigger. I mean, the trigger is, and I didn't mention this, if something occurs at proximity point and we see something big happen, I think that could be as big a trigger or anything. Otherwise, we're going to let the market dictate it. And it's a good question. It's a lot of units coming on at one time. As I always tell investors as we go out and talk about these projects, I can't guarantee you when these are going to fill up. I think it'll be under a year. In some cases, it's been much less than that. But once they get full, they stay full, and they become the nicest apartments in town, and understandably so. But yeah, it's really market dictation.
I've got a two-part question. One would be that, again, your timetable, what would it look like if everything went smoothly? And secondly, would you start with the duplexes or the apartments, or would these be built simultaneously?
Exact same. I mean, February 1 would be the ideal date if we could get started. And there's some construction timing that we'd have to work out, but, ideally be about the same. And probably a project like this, 8 to 10 months construction, maybe a little more.
I have similar questions that I had for the other group that presented. These are maintenance-free homes or maintenance-free
Well,
residents?
the apartments certainly are, and Fairway Vista, some of them are and some of them aren't, and so we're going to have to see. At that price I gave, that would be maintenance-free, but, market dictates that.
Okay. And so then, I want to make sure I have it right. So you're in 2 phases, or is
No.
it a 3-phase process?
It's just one project.
Well, it appears as though there's an extra.
All I was pointing out, thank you for asking, all I was pointing out is that we do, I won't say it under contract, we have an option on, first right of refusal actually, on that balance of
The
that
corner.
ground there on Davis and Wilson. Thank you. Yep. And that's 50-ish units is what you can get in there, depending on design and layout and things like, if you were to do more.
Other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so this brings us to the part of the agenda where our city attorney, Mr. Finch, will give us some direction and clarification.
Commissioners, you basically have a threshold question before you, and that is whether you wish to endorse one of these applications or both of these applications. Based on the decision on that question, we then go to the second question. If you choose one, which one? And if you choose two, which one do you put in the priority order of first, and which one do you rank second? So unfortunately, there's no easy decision here. You'll be either eliminating one or putting one in a second position tonight. But those are the two options before you. So I would recommend that before you proceed to item 15 on the agenda and start talking about that resolution, that you give yourselves the freedom to have some discussion here about whether you want to send up one resolution or whether you want to endorse both. Answer that question first, and then we'll go to question 2.
As per direction from our city attorney, commissioners, how would you like to proceed?
So if we submitted both, we submit both to the state level, then they would determine which one from our presentations, or how would they do that, Wendy?
If you submitted both, then you would have to declare a priority,
One priority, one secondary.
and that's probably, if they funded any, they would probably go with the priority, but, I'm not them, so I can't predict that part. They just indicated to us they have to know your priority. They're comfortable just taking one, if that's how, I think in their preference, they just soon have one, right? That leaves the decision to you and nothing to them. But if you felt that it was important to submit both, then they want to know your priority of the two, which you think meets the housing needs here.
And there's a chance they could approve both?
My understanding is no,
Historically?
but that probably depends on the competition. I think if there is competition, my impression is they'll only award one to a community. To my understanding, they've never awarded more than one. Should there be no competition across the state, then maybe we would want to have two up there just in case.
If a community is awarded one of these projects, does it take that community out of the opportunity to apply then the following year for another project?
No. In fact, as we've gone through this process, we had two private developments under consideration, but we also know that they have funding that you can do for homebuyer down payment assistance is another project, or you can do a combination of projects. So if an applicant came forward and said, we need $200,000 to build these two blue duplexes in this location because that's all they can build there, then we could actually augment that application with another $200,000 for another kind of funding or opportunity. It just so happens these two private ones are asking for the full $400,000. So there are a myriad of choices that we can make in subsequent years, and I expect with the housing needs we have, we would likely do that. It also does not preclude anything to do with the RHID or the tax credit applications. None of those are balanced on each other. And just for the clarity of the public's sake, in all of these kinds of projects, just like with our other tax incentive projects, we would do a development agreement, just like we have had relationships with other developments or other projects that use state incentives or local incentives, to protect everybody's interest and to understand fully what each of us are bound by.
We got a high-class problem.
Yeah.
We got two very good applications, and we need to prioritize them or pick one or the other. So, this is a great problem for us to be considering as a group of which one we want to prioritize. I do have a quick question also for Prairie Fire. On the phases, it looks like the initial phase is a portion coming off of, is that Cherry Street on the west side? Cherry Street on the west side of the property.
I can answer that,
Okay.
yes.
And but the phase, it looks like 3 structures. And with the initial phase, would the road terminate at the end of that, or have a roundabout? Or not a roundabout, but a cul-de-sac type?
Yeah, so because neither project has gone through any kind of plating process, they may not be as prepared to answer how
Okay.
that works, but I'll give it a shot. So for the Prairie Fire project, if they only build a portion of the road at the beginning, which would have to be determined by them, but anticipating that it would be, then there would be a temporary turnaround like we have done with several of our other projects, both commercial and housing. And so yes, we would require that as a part of their plating process. The Fairway Vista project, where the duplexes are, is already platted and has all of its infrastructure. The other lot, however, is one single lot, so it would require either a lot or, because I think there might be some utility needs, another plat.
And possibly detention and so forth on site?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So there are steps that both would have to take following any approvals for development opportunities, including, and Mr. Vogel mentioned, that one has to be rezoned as well.
Wendy, there's the walking trail from the west going to Lincoln.
Yes.
Will there still be access to Lincoln
Yes.
from that direction?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where I thought the question was going to go, so I'm glad you brought this back up. That illustration was just to show about layout of where some units could be, so you could see that. Because the plating hasn't occurred, there would be some changes. And one of those changes that they've agreed to, and we mentioned to you back when we initially approved a contract on this property, would be that there would be a start of a road down towards what would be connecting to the Lincoln site, because our ultimate goal up there is to have a road through and around that school if we can achieve it. And so we would need to have further discussions with the neighbors and the school district, but to open up all of that area up there for development. Both projects being on the north side really open up opportunities for housing up there, and we certainly need them.
Well, I share Commissioner Jorgensen's concern. We got two excellent plans here. One point I have, and I don't know if I'm looking at this right, would be that the Fairway Vista appears like they could get more units open to the market quicker, because you're looking at 3 phases over here for the Prairie Fire, unless that trigger point happens to the point where you may be doing just as many units as the Fairway Vista. I'm looking at time. I'm impatient. We need these units right, today, and I'm just thinking, how can we get these units open and quickly to the people as soon as possible? I don't think the competing firms would have any comment on that. Help yourself to the podium.
They're probably both, I don't want to answer completely, but they both have subsequent steps that have to be taken, right?
Get to that
and either
point.
one could probably start till spring, except for potentially the duplexes could, but we still have to go through all of the RHID, which is going to take 90 days, probably
after this year.
maybe a little longer. And so that's what, they both are anticipating that we would at least consider an RHID, and that in its own self is going to take some time, let alone they both have to do some plating and rezoning. So it kind of depends on how many steps can be layered.
So that could limit.
But spring construction, I think, could be had on both from my perspective.
Yeah, I would also say that, the proposals are a little bit different in that our second phase would include tax credits. And it's a great program, but unfortunately we're on the government's timeline. So we would obviously move to close as quickly as possible if we were allocated. One trade-off is, and this was in the handout that was given to everybody, but our rental rates are also, even though the product may take a little bit longer to get to market, our rental rates are more affordable. They go from about $595 to $895, so it's just something to keep in mind as well.
I wonder, Mr. Vogel, I missed asking you the same question that I asked for Prairie Fire, but could you go back and give me, highlight something that didn't work so well for you, but that you had turned around, or tell me about a project that didn't work so well? And a project that did. I think you told us about great projects, but we all know that we're all human and things happen. Okay.
Similar issues, and not similar issues, but just environment. Won't blame it on the city by any means. Tough environment, tough to get to, tight margins. We didn't have MIH there, tight margins, but it is a killer project. Part of that is because the community's growth certainly helps that. So same project, and it turned out to be a great project, but difficulty. It's never fun watching the sausage being made, and that's the situation with the projects we do. I think I'd love to get over in a corner and say, hey, Rudy, let's hope you guys get your tax credit project, and you guys can run, and hey, let's do this here, because I think, and I think it's probably what's best for your community. I'm a little bit biased, but we've seen them both work together. It will be really, really difficult for our project to work without the MIH grant. Really difficult.
And
by the way, can I answer your timing question? I feel really good about this project. If we get to the state level, I would say we go ahead and start RHID, go ahead and start all those processes, and we'd be out a little bit of money and a little bit of time if we didn't get approved at the state level. But these are really, really strong projects. Kind of like Rudy said, our projects get scored really high, because they're good, attractive projects, needed projects. They add a lot of units. And not get too deep in the weeds, but speak, hey, look, we did, 100 units with our MIH grant last year, and 40 of them were from one of our projects. And maybe those numbers aren't exactly right. And Rudy, I don't mean to say it, but I think they both could work really well together. And as you've stated, Rudy, 2 years, I bet you have a great chance of getting your tax credits this year as well. Yeah.
Could you tell me if your company wasn't the company that we sent up, and obviously we can't bind you to anything, just like you can't bind us to anything, but would you be interested, is Ottawa off the market for you then?
Well, I won't answer that question because Mr. Barnes isn't here, and so I won't answer for him. And by the way, I meant to mention a presentation. They all wanted to be here out of the region, and it doesn't mean that they're not extremely interested and extremely enthused. Purely from a financial model, it would be extremely difficult.
Does it preclude you from applying next year?
No. But it would be extremely difficult.
And when you say next year, do you know, is that on a calendar year? So I could apply in January?
No, the grant.
I think RHID is in.
The grant usually, the applications do usually in the fall sometime. It's kind of moved around September to October-ish for the most part. Usually dictated, it's been dictated by when the legislative session gets done, they're sure they have the money.
They don't ever finish. Right?
Something like that.
City man, or city attorney? Okay. Oh, well, you know. Any other questions that you may have? Commissioners, then I think we have the difficult project of trying to figure out what do you want to do with this particular process?
Short of flipping a coin?
Well, Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
I agree with Mike's, Commissioner Skidmore's assessment. It would appear from the practical standpoint that the Fairway Vista project would put more units in initially as compared to the Prairie Fire project. I really do. I mean, the applications and the developers are outstanding for this for both projects, and but I do agree with Commissioner Skidmore's assessment that that would be the most effective initially.
You know, I'm going to go the other way because I'm concerned, my social work heart is concerned about price point, and I do think that our citizens, and we do have citizenry that could probably afford the price point that is being brought forth with the higher price project at Fairway Vista, but I'd like to see us move forward with Prairie Fire to get that workforce housing moving first.
Madam Mayor.
So, yes.
And I had a similar concern. I was looking at, and I know the numbers are just projected run or estimates, but I was also concerned about the price point for Fairway Vista. I don't know a lot of people that are renting that could afford that right now, but
I believe a month ago, when the KU professor, Dr. I don't remember his name, but he was down here talking about the housing. He had indicated filtering occurs when the new projects are built.
Absolutely.
And so that there is an effective where the folks move up to the higher priced type of housing, opening up the lower priced housing for additional people.
And I can see that. I think that would happen with either project.
That's true.
Yeah, so I don't think that, yeah, I think that would happen with either project. So it appears as though, because we have a commissioner that has, that is abstaining from voting tonight, unless Commissioner Skidmore has something to say, maybe all the ball is in your court. It sounds like everyone's talked except for you, Commissioner Skidmore.
Well, just my earlier point about just more units on the ground quicker is just what I'm looking for. I just feel like we have a demand here in town. we've witnessed with what the doctor said from KU with the housing situation, and there is some quick potential, I think, to get these filled, and being impatient that I am, I just thought we could get these on the ground fast. It just seemed like Fairway Vista had that potential to get them on the ground faster. So I'm leaning that way myself, but, it's a tough call either way. I'd love to have both of them on the ground, so.
Madam Mayor, recall the threshold question for you is whether you want to submit one or two, and you're all talking about which project you prefer, but fundamental question is, do you want to send one or two? And so I guess to guide the discussion a little bit, I would suggest that maybe that be the first question you answer.
Commissioners, what's the will of the commission?
It doesn't hurt us to submit two, does it, Wendy? Just that if they say we have to prioritize one over the other. Okay. So with that said, I'd say let's submit both of them and see what happens.
I think we run the risk if there's not one prioritized or
Neither.
Yes, you
You
absolutely
will
have
have
to
to prioritize.
prioritize them, or you run the risk of getting neither one.
Both of them.
And very high risk, you would get
Yeah.
neither one if you don't at least
Yeah.
prioritize.
And I think both projects do have merit to submit this round.
So is there a consensus to submit both? All right.
Now we're
Gosh,
slightly
thanks,
farther
Mr.
along.
Finch.
Now you're back to the question
Yeah,
of which one you
thanks.
prioritize first.
That took an extra 60 seconds. Let's go back to where we're at. Thank you. Now that we are going to, we had agreement that we would submit both, which project would you like to submit?
Well, I'm sensing we're 2 and 2. Is that right? Commissioner Crowley's going to be abstaining.
That is correct.
Commissioner Crowley has a contractual relationship with one of the applicants.
Okay.
He has disclosed that conflict, and he may choose to participate in the consensus decision here about breaking this tie, if the tie still exists after some further deliberations. But at this time, anyway, he's voiced his desire to abstain. So you can either continue to discuss a little bit, or if he decides that he wishes to participate, he can do that. The Kansas Conflict of Interest Law states that, especially for local government, slightly different for state legislators and offices above that, you must disclose if you have a substantial interest or a contractual relationship, but after that, you are free to participate once the conflict has been disclosed. And Commissioner Crowley has properly disclosed that conflict and may participate if he so chooses. So you have two options at this point. One is to deliberate further and kind of break the apparent deadlock. The other is at some point if Commissioner Crowley jumps in and participates as well. So those are the two options at the moment.
And then, Mayor, I'd probably add, we have to have resolutions in order for the application to go forward, but if you want to allow, if you can't reach a decision tonight, and you have additional research or additional questions you want them to answer, you can make your priority decision on Monday at your regular study session. So that's available to all of you, just in case you feel like there's something else you want them to respond to or us to look at.
And I would propose that if we, I will be out of town on Monday, so it'll be even a smaller group, so.
That would break a 2-2.
Yeah. Just wait till Monday. Gosh.
And it would also.
Commissioner Graves?
Are you going to be here? And I also do think that could give a little more time to just check some references. And I guess I'd like to call some of these cities where you've just had some work done and get some references there, and that would allow us a little more time to do so. But I don't know if Commissioner Jorgensen would be available by phone to make a vote if we decided to vote on Monday.
I can't guarantee
Yeah.
anything. I'll be where I'll be. May not have cell phone coverage.
There is a hurricane approaching Florida, you know.
It's not that.
Okay. All right. Just in case you hadn't heard. All right.
Commissioners, do you want to continue to have our discussion about this? It does appear as though we do have a split vote. We can certainly put this off until Monday. We can go ahead and have the conversation. Commissioner Crowley can weigh in if he would like to do so. Everything is on the table at this point. Commissioner Crowley, did you have something you'd like to say? You're leaning forward like...
Blake was getting ready to say something, so.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Obviously, I don't want to leave this at a deadlock tonight since we have to have an answer. So if need be, I mean, I could certainly put my, opinion in. I've worked many of years with Rudy on a lot of projects, and I know the quality, and I know the timing, It may take some time to get started, but that's more, state, federally funded money. But once it gets in, it goes. I know that for sure because I got kind of yelled at last year for not keeping up. So, so if it, my initial concern, and it has nothing to do with my relationship with him, was the cost of the units itself too. I mean, $12.50 for a unit seems a little steep for our town, and that was my major concern. Not even concerned about any what kind of what if it's duplexes, if it's multifamily or whatever, or anything like that. That was my concern. I mean, I wrote that down 45 minutes ago when I was reading over some of this stuff before we even got to that. So that's how I feel.
Okay, does that mean that you feel comfortable enough to vote, or you'd like to wait?
And I'd to break the deadlock, I'd vote. And I want to say something also. I've had a conversation with Jason Romero too. We bid a project for him in Lawrence, so he's a great guy. I mean, we were just a little high on that project, and that's why we didn't end up getting it. But he's had a conversation with me via email, and that we were looking at doing other projects for him. So it's I never want to shut any doors on any contractors from my side. So, but I mean, if it came down to breaking a deadlock, I'd certainly like to vote.
Commissioners,
May I have ask one more question?
absolutely.
Mr. Maines?
Ask as many as you like.
The MIH is this go around. If the MIH is not approved, do you anticipate a LIHTC application, or does the process have to occur with your phase 1 to phase 2?
No, the LIHTC is.
Would you like to come to the mic so we make sure we can get it for anybody who might be listening? Thank you.
The LIHTC will be completely independent of the moderate.
Can you explain what a LIHTC is? Because I don't think we've actually discussed
the low-income
this.
housing tax credit.
It was enacted in 1986 by President Reagan, and who I had the privilege of serving for and under, and worked for him as well on his ranch while I was in the service. So that's what it is. If you look it up, Section 42 of the IRS code, low-income house tax credit. They're going to be changing the name of it to the Affordable Housing Program, probably with this next budget that gets passed, because that's really what it is. It's income restricted. You can't make too much money, but you have to have income to qualify for it. So it's really your working class people, Applebee's, any of the stores around, all the manufacturing that we have. That's what this program is all about. It's for the affordable housing. Moderate picks up, just like I said early on, right above that, because there are so many people that won't qualify because they're $1 over that threshold, $1, and that is significant to these people. So that's where they come in with the moderate housing program. And again, all it's doing is bringing equity in that pushes the debt down, and the mortgages are sized off of that to keep everything affordable. So he's doing the same thing on the market rate. He's using it. Without it, his project wouldn't be feasible without a tremendous amount of private equity to go into it, and so that would be the challenge for him there. My feel, the likelihood, and I think he's going to say the same thing, the likelihood of Fred awarding a moderate with the city going in with 2 priority, or a 1 and a number 2, what that really does is it sends a message to them that you're not committed. So that's something you need to be aware of, and he may say the same thing, I don't know, but that's something you guys need to be aware of.
Well, and I also want to give a little more context on the low-income housing tax credits. That's from 30% to 60% of the county's area median income. So just round numbers for understanding, if the median income was $100,000, it would range for individuals who made between $30,000 and $60,000. Moderate income housing goes from about 60% of the AMI to 140%. So it would go from 60 to 140,000. Market rate is completely unrestricted. and that's what we propose between our 3 developments. So when we talk about capturing a wide swath of demand in the market, we would serve anyone from 30% to completely unrestricted. So there would be the opportunity to move into brand new, the newest market rate, the newest tax credit, and the newest moderate income housing in Ottawa. So our program, our proposal would capture literally the entire market.
Can I, Mr. Maines, can I ask you to clarify that last statement that you said there about submitting the 2 applications even with preference would question our commitment to the project?
That's really what it does. Typically, we come in and we're looking for, on the LIHTC side, and the moderate really mirrors the program. We're looking for support from the city. The city's got to support everything of what you're doing. And if you're going in, and they're both great projects, okay? To be real frank, we were going to pull out. I'm a resident here, and I was saying the same thing that what you said, Mr. Skidmore. I looked at Ross's proposal. I'm looking at the number of units that is coming into it. I know the need of what's here, but then I had to step back, and I have to understand 2 different programs, and the rents, his are higher, very, very nice units. Okay, he builds a nice product, but what's our true demand? I feel ours is the workforce housing, and that's another reason why we want to be up around the school, where the families are at, around the new elementary schools, the employment that's there, and the employment that's coming. So again, both programs are good, but in my opinion, it sends mixed signals to the state whether you're really committed, is what it does in my opinion.
If you submit both
Yes, sir.
projects and okay, with preference. Okay. Thank you. And would you agree with that statement, or?
Please, come forward.
I have a couple comments. I don't know. The first year of the program, Garden City prioritized our project. They had 2 other projects that they submitted. I don't know how it played into it at all, so I really don't know. One thing I would say is these projects are so complementary of each other, and your community so much needs Rudy. And I think by Rudy saying that, I would really love to see both. And I know you all are concerned about cost, and there's a reason I pointed out, because I saw the difference. That's the same thing we've charged in every community. And I looked over here just to check, and I already knew the answer. Your median family income are the same that they are in the other communities they've been, and the other ones have filled. I think there's one huge issue that I've said without right saying it, but I will say. If you advance their project, which is a good project, and you're going to get the LIHTC deal next spring. I can't promise you, but I'm certain. I would be a little concerned that you don't get approved simply off this. You are only getting 6 units, is that right? 6 units for $400,000, that's $66,000 per unit. With ours for $400,000, you get 38 units. And that's one of the things I talk about this subject a lot, and one of the things I talk about is as being a good citizen. A lot of these projects, and I see it happen a lot, is they have a $400,000 duplex, and they put $200,000 of government money in it. And what we really need to get to, so we're not having to sit here and make these hard decisions that the market takes over, it needs to be a $330,000 duplex, and there needs to be $70,000 or $50,000 of government money in it. And I see how this thing is tilting, and I understand why, and I can understand your position. I'm not worried about about those feeling. I mean, the market will dictate where they will. Maybe we have to drop the rents. I am such concerned if you're sitting there and you're scoring these, and we don't know. There's $2 million limit, by the way, across the state. So $2 million limit. If there's $3 million in request and they go 6 units, it's a little bit slight. And I'm not trying to denigrate their project, because you're going to get the other project. I just think, as I look at it and I think about this rural housing issue every day, 24 months from now, I think your community is going to be in a better position if you would advance this project, because I think eventually you're going to have both projects, and both projects quickly. The other thing, I think, when you talk about, I wasn't going to get into this, I was in Tonganoxie. We're looking at a real similar project in Tonganoxie. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply for MIH doesn't, it's too, Leavenworth County's too large. When they announced their 1,600 jobs, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, it's a Tyson plan, and a lot of those people can't qualify for this, but there's a big part of that, or a certain portion of that 1,600 that can. Man, they wish they were shovel-ready to go on a project that is market rate like this one is right now. And quite frankly, without that MIH, it's that much harder because we've got to get that much more equity and the return's that much lower. So I'm kind of making my Hail Mary speech because I can see how this is going, but I sure I want it. It's not a competitive thing. I think if we look back 24 months, and Rudy said, man, look at that, it's a good project. If we look back 24 months from now, we go, man, that was a really good choice.
Thank you. Commissioners, any response or any follow-up questions that you may have after those presentations? Are we still at, do we want to, I know you brought up a question of one or two. Do you want to bring that up and re-examine that choice?
I guess what I wonder, I don't know if our baseball players still want to stick around. You don't have to unless you want to follow. This is a good civics lessons, I guess, if you wanted to stick around for civics.
They are going to be renters very soon.
Okay, but I was going to say, you're free to go.
Commissioner Skidmore,
We might go into
within
tomorrow,
5
so.
years, they're going to be renters here in our community.
Okay.
They are probably our next city commissioners.
Okay, that's right.
Do you want to reevaluate the one or two? If you don't, that's fine. I'm just throwing it out there.
Did you say, the last meeting you said 3 were presented at the state level?
Garden City is the only thing I have context on.
Okay.
They had 3, and it was the first year. They were still drinking from the fires.
They didn't know it, okay.
I don't know if it had any effect or not.
All right. Hard to tell.
I think the big issue is priority for you all.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys want to call it a tie and let them choose it, they don't.
No.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
We've been strongly advised by Mrs. Lee that is not an opportunity.
She's 100%
Yes.
correct. It actually says it in the
I'm sorry, but
When
yeah,
I talked to
Mrs.
him,
Lee
he
wins over that. Sorry.
When I talked to him, he was quite clear about that. And the city that I talked to that submitted to and didn't prioritize was also quite clear that they believe that's why they didn't get any funding. When I talked to Fred again about it, he really wants a priority, and his comment back was the project that you think meets the community need right now. And then, whether that informs your discussion or not, but then they'll do their ranking based on things that they both mentioned, so.
Well, Madam Mayor, I guess in regard to the priority and so forth, I do believe that we represent all the citizens of Ottawa, low income, moderate income, and
Yes.
higher income. And I think we do have a lack of housing in that rent range that's in the higher level. I do understand where you're coming from as far as a lower income, and I think the community has done a good job in the past to provide lower income housing and rent subsidized housing throughout the community. There's several projects that have been built over the last 10, 15 years that do fit a need in that regard. And I think there's probably people that could move up into single-family housing, rental units, or other projects. And so, I guess I am committed to the Fairway Vista project at this time.
I want to kind of respond to what you had just said, Commissioner Jorgensen. I don't believe that the Prairie Fire Development Group is bringing us a low-income project. When you said like low-income housing, I don't believe that $600 is low income. For a lot of people, that is a house payment. And so I don't believe that $600 is a low-income project. I just don't. I do think it's at the lower end, but I don't think it's a low-income project. And I am all for affordable housing.
And I say low income because that's the acronym low-income tax incentive project, LIHTC,
But we're actually not talking about
which is
that.
phase 2, but
Yeah.
it's one of the phases.
Yeah, but we're applying for just phase 1. Is that correct? I mean, am I wrong?
That's
This
right.
is not applying for low-income tax credit at this point. Okay. So Commissioners, it's 8:30.
I'm still in
Is,
favor of that.
did anybody bring their pajamas? Because it doesn't appear as though we're moving very quickly.
Commissioners, you might want to take, you've been in session an hour and a half. Perhaps you'd like to take a 10-minute recess.
Is there a will of the commission to do so? I would be fine with a 5-minute break, simply because my children are upstairs studying for their math test right now, and I really do need to make sure they haven't killed anybody. So, and Dennis Butler's not here, but Adam is, and he could go check on them to make sure, but you're not responsible for that. So could we take a 5-minute break from 8 to 8:30 and then come back? We, of course, will not have discussion amongst ourselves. All discussion needs to be had in a public forum. So let's certainly make sure and stay upon that rule and then come back at 8:35 and move forward.
11 tomorrow.
Supposedly, the math studying is done. We'll see. Thank you for coming back. And it gave us a few minutes, I think, maybe to clear our heads, just kind of take a walkabout. Commissioners, we are at a spot in which that we have, just a recap, in which we have chosen to send up 2 of these projects, but to prioritize those projects. We are in the process of discussing Prairie Fire, the merits of Prairie Fire versus the merits of Fairway Vista. We have a couple things that are opportunities for us here. We can choose to, Commissioner Crowley, just for the reminder of the public, Commissioner Crowley has given his declaration of conflict with Prairie Fire, his working development with, or his workings with Prairie Fire Development Group. We have been advised by our city attorney that that doesn't preclude Commissioner Crowley from voting. Commissioner Crowley has indicated that he would vote if he need be. We do have the opportunity to go to Monday the 11th. This process is not due until the 15th, correct, Mrs. Lee? So we could have that vote on the 11th. We do have a commissioner that will be out and will be out of cell phone service, which I'm kind of jealous, because how great is that to be out of cell phone service for a few days? Yeah. He says it is. So that would take Commissioner Jorgensen out from his vote. So with that summary, how would you like to proceed?
Madam Mayor, I prefer not to. I prefer to make a decision tonight, and I'm going to recommend Commissioner Crowley that you not weigh in on the matter, because I want to save you from your any appearance of a conflict of interest, especially with the upcoming election coming. And I've weighed both projects, and I feel like we need to make a decision tonight, and I feel like, as I said earlier, both projects are outstanding, and I guess in an effort to move this forward and to make a to make a decision this evening, I would support the Prairie Fire application for consideration. As I said, both projects are excellent projects, and I feel at this time that and knowing the other commissioners, that there's likely, I mean, pushing it off until Monday, the decision is going to be similar anyway.
Commissioner, I appreciate your sentiments. Do you at all want to reconsider the, because I brought this up in the past, do we want to consider bringing up just one? Do we want to bring up 2? Where does the commission stand on that?
I guess I'd still like to submit the 2. I mean, we never know what they might do with that second one. If we don't submit the second one, we know what their answer would be on the second one then. So I would still be in favor of submitting both. If we have to go a priority, I understand that point, but I guess we can decide that priority too. But
Commissioner Graves, are you fine with submitting 2?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jorgensen, how do you feel about that?
Restate what you...
I'm just wondering if the commission continues to want to move forward with presenting 2 options and prioritizing those options.
That'd be fine.
Commissioner Crowley, do you have a...
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
I
All but
should
jumping
probably
up and
add,
down.
and just for the sake of total clarity, either one of those, depending on what your ultimate choice is, may elect not to go through the process because they haven't written out all their grant material. So just so you know, they may elect, based on your prioritization, not to complete the process, but
okay.
At least they know where you stand.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Finchke, if you could explain to us what we need to do first, because it appears as though we have a couple of different resolutions on our agenda. How would you advise us to move forward on our agenda?
It would appear that you now have a majority consensus to send both, that is to adopt both resolutions showing support for both projects and to prioritize, as I understand it, the Prairie Fire Development Group application as your number one choice and the Fairway Vista project as your number two choice, based on what Commissioner Jorgensen had to say and Commissioner Graves, and then the mayor. That would be three that seem to be in favor of that prioritization. My recommendation to you would be that you adopt both of the resolutions, 15 and 16, that you direct staff to indicate that the resolution in number 15 is your priority, and that we will communicate that to the state that is the priority resolution, priority application, and number one, and then the Fairway Vista is number two. And so I think there's sufficient direction here for staff, and at this point, you're ready to proceed with resolutions at item 15 and 16 on the agenda.
Okay. So item 15 on the agenda.
Consideration of resolution for moderate income housing for Prairie Fire Development Group, LLC.
This is a 56-unit multifamily project to be developed on the corner of North Cherry and Enterprise. Is there a motion to consider that resolution?
Is it both of them together? I'm sorry.
I think we need to adopt them
We'll
separately.
adopt them separately. They're both standalone resolutions.
Is there a motion to consider that resolution?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve item 15 in the agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion among commissioners?
I just have a quick question then. So this would be saying this would be the priority, and if we move on 16, that would be the secondary?
That seemed to be the consensus of the commission.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Skidmore.
All right.
Do you need that stated in the motion?
If you wish to state it for the record, we can make sure the city clerk has it in the minutes that this is your first priority application.
Do you wish to amend your?
Yes, I would like to amend my motion for item 15 to consider the resolution for Prairie Fire Development as our priority.
Will you second that?
I accept it.
Okay. Any other discussion among commissioners? We will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
No?
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Abstain.
Mayor Kaler?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. That moves us on to item 16.
Consideration of resolution for moderate income housing for Fairway Vista project.
This 38 mixed-unit multifamily project planned for a portion of the remaining lots in the Fairway Vista subdivision. Commissioners, is there a motion to consider?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move to approve the resolution as described in item 16 to promote it as our second priority to the state.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion among commissioners? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Abstain.
Commissioner Skidmore?
No?
Mayor Kaler?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That was a long process. That moves us on to item 17 on the agenda.
Request for resolution to establish a public hearing for the consideration of the condemnation of the property located at 319 South Cedar.
This resolution establishes a public hearing to be held at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 1st for the consideration of condemnation of the property at 319 South Cedar. Mrs. Lee is going to make a short presentation for us, and then she will further make her long, drawn, complete argument on the November 1st. Because you've really
Just in
done your...
case you're curious,
Yes.
I offered to shorten the presentation.
Yes.
I know.
I didn't finish out. I said...
You know, I'm just pitch hitting here anyway. Okay, so actually, I'd like to cover all three of your next actions. We'll make it as short as we possibly can. The three resolutions remaining on the agenda tonight are all requesting you pass resolutions that would set hearings for each of these properties, 319 South Cedar, 820 South Lincoln, and 635 South Mulberry, for the hearing to be held on Wednesday, November 1st at 7 p.m. At that time, the staff would enter into the record our PowerPoint and all of our remaining documents. You actually have as a record for the resolution tonight those documents, but we will cover the presentation that night. Each one of these properties would, subsequently to any action tonight, would receive notice of that hearing date. They still can and may either begin repairs or begin to remove the structure if they so choose. Just so it's clear from the public standpoint, this does not preclude them from acting between now and November 1st. In fact, it's our preference if they begin taking action on them. But at that time, we would hear a case as to whether or not they should be condemned and put into a formal time frame in order to complete whichever direction they may choose. If they fail to act and we hold those hearings and you pass the actions at that time, then the city would be able to act and remove the structures in lieu of their repairing them or removing them.
So for complete clarity, these properties that you are discussing today, they are not going to be torn down tomorrow.
No, ma'am. We won't, the city won't take any action on these structures in that time frame other than provide the notice, and if any or all of them were to become further having more dangerous or open to entry, we might place things over windows or doors. We've had to do that before if they were left open. Otherwise, they'll remain just as they are until the owner takes action or until the city authorizes actions after November 1st.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move to approve the resolution as described in item 17.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion among commissioners? I might also want to point out, just as Mrs. Lee had said, that we will have a complete, see, this is what happens when we go too long, that we will have a complete response and presentation from from Mrs. Lee and possibly Mr. Sherman on November 1st. Commissioners, is there any other discussion? We will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Item 18.
Request for resolution to establish a public hearing for the consideration of the condemnation of the property located at 820 South Lincoln.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the
First time that's
resolution
ever-
as described in item 18.
Okay, is there a second?
Go ahead.
I'll second.
We're going to move right
we're
along
all-
here.
How come we can't do it this fast every time? Is there any discussion among commissioners?
As I say, building takes time. Tearing down is quick.
We will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes. I'm just even wondering, do we read 19 or do we go ahead and just look at Commissioner Jorgensen and say, do you want to make that motion?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the resolution as described in item 19.
For 635 South Mulberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion among commissioners? I might want to point out, all joking aside, this is actually a very serious action. And condemnation of any property in the city of Ottawa is a very serious action. And I take it very seriously when we spend taxpayer money to tear down a house that is owned by a private citizen. And we will hear complete details about this on November 1st, 2017. And I invite the public to participate in that particular hearing in whatever process that they can. But this is a very serious action. So saying that, and without any other discussion, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes, motion carries. That moves us on to a report by our city manager.
Thank you for allowing me the next 45.
Yes, exactly.
One thing, we will be at League the 15th to 18th.
The microphone's not on, Rich.
You have to walk to the microphone.
I got to start that 45 minutes back over. So, Commissioners, we will be at League on the 18th. traditionally, we have canceled that study session because a number of us are out of town. So you might give some thought to that tonight or just take care of it Monday.
Something to discuss, certainly.
And that's it.
Okay. Reports by city commissioners. Commissioner Graves?
I have no report.
Commissioner Skidmore?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
No report.
And Commissioner Crowley?
I have none.
Okay. Reports by the mayor. I actually do have a couple things. I was privileged at the 10th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act to actually listen to Ted Kennedy talk at the Capitol steps about the importance of this particular act. And I cannot tell you how, I know this happened 2 hours ago when we had this discussion, but how important the Americans with Disabilities Act is, was, continues to be for so many of our citizens. And so I think it is absolutely critical that we continue to hold that up as being anybody with whatever ability that they have rights in this community. And I don't want us to walk away tonight to forget the importance of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I also want to point out for the next 2-3 weeks, we have big weekends in our community. And oftentimes you'll hear me say from behind the mic here that we represent you as the citizens, but really now is the time for you as a citizen to represent our community. And so we need you to be extra Kansas nice, to for anybody who looks like that they may not know where they're going or may have a question, help somebody out. This is our opportunity to really show what a great community that we have here, and you, the citizen, are the individuals that tell our visitors what a great community we have. The 5 of us certainly do our absolute best. I would say everybody in the room does their absolute best to sell our community and tell the community how wonderful the city of Ottawa is, but it's your responsibility, if you're watching this, to actually be that good citizen and just be the welcome wagon be the welcome wagon, that's telling you, to be the welcome wagon, and to thank people for being in our community. It's a really couple busy weekends for us, so just introduce yourself, tell individuals that you're glad they're here, and tell them that you'd like to help them however they can. So that moves us on to announcements. We do have a study session at 4 o'clock on the 11th of September here at City Hall. Anyone is invited, as are they, to any one of our meetings. We have the League of Kansas Municipalities Conference in Wichita from the 15th to the 18th of September. We have our regular meeting on the 20th at 9:30 a.m. And we have our joint city-county school board luncheon at noon at the county annex on the 20th, right after our 9:30 meeting. We do have a fall festival that's coming up. We always want to celebrate our super great employees. That sounded really cheesy, but really, we do have fabulous employees here, and they really make our city run, and we certainly want to celebrate them with a fall festival that is going to happen on the 6th of October from 5 to 8 at the Streets Barn. If there's nothing else to be brought in front of the City Commission tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I make that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We are adjourned.